A state often pictured like a perfect postcard. The sparkling waves of Chesapeake Bay, historic red brick towns, the smell of fresh seafood, all calm, all idyllic. But that's just the surface. Behind the postcard lie the secrets of Maryland's 10 most abandoned and forgotten cities. These are places where time seems to have stopped. Buildings stand empty, yet life pulses just around the corner, like a page of history was suddenly torn out. Some streets have rowhouses missing like teeth. Some hospital campuses stretch across acres, frozen in time like small towns halted mid-story. And some places are so extreme they were literally erased by a river, while the bridges above still carry trains every single day. Today I'm taking you inside the Maryland that never makes it onto a postcard. Grab a chair, turn the volume up, and step into a world of forgotten cities. If you dare. If you're ready to uncover more hidden corners of Maryland, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's dive into the top 10 abandoned cities together. Number 10. Baltimore City, the city with missing teeth. Footage, residential streets, some rowhouses boarded up, neighbors going about their daily lives, children playing, corner stores open. Baltimore isn't a ghost town. It's something stranger. It hits you like a city with missing teeth. You might be walking down a perfectly normal block, someone hauling laundry, kids yelling across the street, the corner store doors swinging open and closed, and then your eyes catch it. A row of brick houses, shoulder to shoulder, suddenly interrupted by a cluster of boarded-up homes. It's as if the street itself got punched in the mouth, and it's not just one empty house. In Baltimore, when row houses touch, vacancy is contagious. Moisture seeps through walls, pests infiltrate, structural stress spreads, and soon the entire block begins to sag under the weight of absence. One empty house pulls the next and the next, until entire corridors of homes feel hollow, negotiating with gravity itself. The numbers are stark. Over 13,000 vacant buildings, more than 20,000 vacant lots. Vacancy here doesn't scatter randomly. It clusters in strips, forming vacancy corridors, a shadow skeleton stitched into the living city. Life continues right alongside the emptiness. You can smell someone's dinner cooking while plywood stares back at you 2 doors down. You can hear the hum of a TV through a shared wall, yet the block seems to sag under the tension of absence. Baltimore isn't dead. It's alive, but it whispers in the thin spots, places where absence is loud precisely because life is still right there, brushing against it. So here's the question. If you were walking these streets, surrounded by life and emptiness in the same frame, would you focus on the living city, or let the silence of the vacant blocks pull you in? Number 9. Crownsville, the abandoned hospital city. Crownsville feels like someone built an entire town for one purpose, and then that purpose was suddenly taken away. Spanning 500 acres with 76 structures, this hospital campus was not just a medical facility, it was a self-contained city. It had its own internal roads, water towers, wastewater treatment system, and enough infrastructure to run day-to-day operations without ever calling for outside help. Every building, every road, every utility was part of a carefully orchestrated routine, until suddenly it all stopped. History. 10. Established by Maryland law. 1963. Segregation era officially ended. Farm 4. Closed due to budget pressures and shifts in the healthcare system. Today, Arundel County has transformed it into Crownsville. Hospital Memorial Park plans call for selective stabilization of some buildings, demolition of others, and careful reuse of certain structures. But standing there, the campus feels eerie. It's not just abandoned, it's frozen in an organized silence. Roads that once hummed with activity now echo with emptiness. Water towers loom like silent sentinels. Buildings stand in precise alignment as if time itself paused to take a breath. Walking these empty corridors, you can almost hear the routine that no longer exists. Staff walking between wards, patients moving from building to building, the low hum of a functioning city that is now silent. It's unsettling because this is not decay by neglect. It's a city that stopped perfectly in its tracks. If you stood in the middle of Crownsville today, surrounded by infrastructure built to serve hundreds, would you feel the weight of its history or the eerie power of a city that time forgot? Number 8. Glendale, the forgotten medical city of tunnels. Just 15 miles from Washington, D.C., and yet, stepping into Glendale feels like crossing into a forgotten world. Once designed as a therapeutic campus for tuberculosis and other long-term care, Glendale was built around the principle that fresh air and separation were medicine. Every building, every pathway, every green lawn was carefully planned to heal. But here's the twist that sets Glendale apart. Underground tunnels. These were not quaint passageways, they were functional, secret corridors connecting buildings, allowing staff and patients to move safely between facilities during harsh weather. It was like a hidden subway city beneath the trees, a private network of life running silently under the open sky. Over time, history changed the rules. After antibiotics became widespread and modern healthcare shifted, the campus lost its purpose. Glendale officially closed in 1981. Maintenance costs were high, safety concerns escalated, and now, the campus exists in two layers of abandonment. Above ground, the buildings stand in silence among overgrown lawns, while below tunnels lie hidden, dark and still. Walking here, it's impossible not to feel both awe and unease. Imagine dusk settling and you spot a vine-covered tunnel entrance. The air is cool, shadows stretch long, and the forest seems to watch. Would you step closer and explore the underground maze, or step back and pretend it isn't there? If you had the chance to walk through Glendale's hidden tunnels, would curiosity drive you forward, or would the silence and darkness make you turn away? Number 7. Fort Carroll. The island city time forgot. Fort Carroll rises from the Patapsco River like a dare someone left behind, a hexagonal stone island, defiant and isolated. From a distance, it looks visible, almost reachable, but as you imagine stepping closer, you realize it is untouchable, frozen in time, slowly surrendering to the river's persistent currents. Construction began before the Civil War, yet the fort was never fully completed. Still, it hosted a garrison, standing ready even as history moved faster than bricks and mortar. Over the decades, military technology evolved. Modern artillery rendered Fort Carroll obsolete. Unlike dramatic collapse, obsolescence here is quiet, almost respectful. The fort simply aged in place while life carried on around it. The lighthouse atop the island stands as a solitary witness, guiding ships past while the walls below quietly crumble. There are no footsteps, no voices, only the slow, unrelenting passage of time, a place caught between human ambition and nature's patient reclamation. Visiting Fort Carroll is not just about seeing ruins, it's about feeling the tension between presence and absence. A fully constructed island meant for purpose, yet purpose faded long ago. If you were standing on the riverbank, looking at Fort Carroll, would you be drawn to explore its abandoned stone walls? Or would the silent weight of history keep you safely on shore? Number 6. Rosewood, the locked institution city. Rosewood is the kind of place where it feels like someone flipped the switch and walked away, a self-contained city suddenly frozen in time. Established in 1888 as a state institution for people with developmental disabilities, it operated not just as a series of buildings, but as a complete ecosystem. This was a self-sufficient community, cafeterias preparing meals, livestock providing dairy and meat, agricultural fields tended daily, pathways connecting dormitories, offices, and workshops. Everything ran in its own rhythm, a microcosm designed to support life and labor in perfect coordination. But in 2009, the campus officially closed. Over time, portions of the land have been redeveloped. But before any human footsteps return, environmental remediation comes first. Cleanup, assessment, stabilization, everything done methodically. Walking through Rosewood today, you sense order in the silence. It is quiet, eerie, almost reverent. The buildings themselves seem to remember their old routines. Rosewood's abandonment is different. It's not decay caused by neglect. It's planned dormancy, a city that once functioned fully, now paused, waiting for careful human interaction to return. The fields are overgrown, doors locked, yet the layout whispers stories of labor, care, and daily life, a blueprint of a society that once thrived within fences. If you stepped onto Rosewood's quiet grounds today, would you feel curiosity to uncover the layers of life that once thrived here? Or would the weight of its closed ecosystem keep you at the edge, respecting its silence? Number 5. Forest Haven, the lost children's city in the woods. Imagine stepping into a place that was once a vibrant, self-contained city for children, only to find it slowly swallowed by the forest. That's Forest Haven, hidden in the Maryland suburbs. At its peak, this campus was more than just buildings. It was a miniature town designed for daily life and care. There were hospital wards, dormitories, classrooms, administrative offices, a chapel, a cafeteria, a gym, a theater, and even a baseball field. Every structure and pathway had a purpose, carefully planned to support residents and staff alike. The campus functioned like its own small society, with routines, care schedules, and work assignments. But over time, policy changes and evolving care standards reshaped the landscape. Residents were gradually relocated to group homes and community-based facilities. And by 1991, Forest Haven officially closed its doors. What remains today is both beautiful and unsettling. Nature has taken command. Trees press tightly against brick walls. Vines creep through broken windows and doors, weaving an intricate green web. Wind moves through empty hallways, creating a natural orchestra that turns abandoned corridors into eerie instruments. The sense of abandonment here is active, not passive. The forest is reclaiming its space with deliberate patience. A hauntingly human detail lingers. A toy bunny, once a presidential gift, ended up at Forest Haven, a curious artifact of human life amidst creeping nature. It's small, almost comical, but also a reminder of lives that once animated this campus. Walking through Forest Haven now, you realize that the buildings themselves are no longer the creators of the space the forest has taken over. Every hallway, every courtyard, every playground feels less like a place humans built and more like a landscape the woods have invented. Time here is fluid. The past, present, and nature's reclamation coexist, creating a surreal, almost otherworldly atmosphere. If you found yourself standing in the center of Forest Haven, with sunlight filtering through broken windows, wind rustling through overgrown halls and trees pressing close, would you dare to explore its abandoned playgrounds and hidden corners? Or would the forest's quiet dominance make you step back and leave? Number 4, Fort Howard, the abandoned veteran city on the bay. Picture yourself on a perfectly ordinary Maryland morning. Sunlight dances on the Chesapeake Bay. A gentle breeze carries the scent of salt water, and sneakers crunch on the sandy shore. Families laugh, kids chase frisbees, someone snaps a photo. Life flows as if nothing else exists. And yet, just beyond a tall, weathered fence, a ghostly city waits silently. Welcome to Fort Howard, the abandoned veteran city on the bay. Its origins trace back to 1896, a time when coastal defense was critical. Fort Howard was designed to guard Baltimore Harbor, complete with artillery placements, barracks, and strategic roads. By 1902, the fort was renamed and gradually evolved into a hospital campus for veterans, a self-contained community with wards, offices, and support buildings. Over decades, as medical care centralized elsewhere, clinical activity moved on, leaving the campus in a state of quiet abandonment. What strikes you most is the contrast of realities. On the bay side of the fence, life is vivid and immediate. Waves lap, sunlight shimmers, children play. Behind the fence, buildings stand motionless, roads cracked and overgrown, doors boarded, and windows staring blankly. Two parallel worlds exist side by side, one alive with energy, the other frozen in time. Walk closer and you notice subtle details. Faded signs marking old hospital wings, moss creeping up brick walls, small trees pushing through sidewalks where veterans once walked. Every element whispers a story of purpose, of routines, of human life now absent. Yet the structures retain dignity. They are not collapsing in chaos, but standing in deliberate stillness, like silent witnesses to history. Fort Howard is more than an abandoned site. It's a time capsule, a study in human presence and absence, a place where nature slowly encroaches yet man-made order persists. The shoreline invites you to linger, while the city behind the fence dares you to imagine what life was like here. If you stood on the sunny shore feeling the bay breeze and looked across at Fort Howard's frozen buildings, would you step past the fence to uncover the silent stories of the veteran city, or leave them untouched, letting the ghosts of history remain behind the barriers? Number 3, Savage Mountain, the industrial ghost town. Imagine a mountain that once roared with life, the clang of steel, the whistle of trains, smokestacks stretching high into the sky, and workers bustling from dawn till dusk. That was Savage Mountain, a beacon of industrial power and prosperity. But today, silence. Absolute haunting silence. Factories stand as empty shells, windows shattered, machinery rusting quietly in place, railway tracks swallowed by weeds and dirt. Every graffiti tag, every cracked wall, every rusted beam tells the story of a city that thrived and then paused abruptly. The human element is everywhere, even in absence. You can almost hear the echo of workers' boots on concrete floors, the hum of furnaces, the chatter in break rooms, and yet nature is relentless. Ivy snakes up the walls, trees sprout through cracked floors, and moss carpets areas once bustling with industry, as if the mountain itself is reclaiming its territory. Walking here feels like stepping into a paused documentary, a city frozen mid-scene, where history and decay coexist. The buildings are not merely abandoned. They are monuments to the economic collapse that swept through this once thriving industrial hub. Savage Mountain is a place where industry met impermanence, where ambition and labor were once celebrated, and where now, the quiet speaks louder than machines ever did. If you walked along these rusting tracks and empty factories, feeling the weight of history and nature pressing in, would you explore deeper into Savage Mountain to uncover its industrial secrets, or respect the silence and leave the ghosts of labor undisturbed? Number 2, Havre de Grace, the abandoned waterfront town. Havre de Grace sits at the edge of the Susquehanna River like a town that never finished saying goodbye. Once this waterfront buzzed with movement, fishermen unloading their catch, dock workers shouting orders, warehouses alive with trade, and boats lining up like clockwork. This was a place where the river meant livelihood. Today the docks are quiet, too quiet. Wooden planks creak under no one's weight. Warehouses stand sealed and hollow, their windows clouded with dust and time. Fog drifts in from the river like a soft curtain, gently hiding what used to be a working economy. Look closer and the details hit harder. Boats are still tied to the docks, not wrecked, not sunk, just abandoned mid-story, as if their owners stepped away and never came back. Old signs sway in the wind, paint peeling to reveal decades of layered history. Rust stains run down metal fixtures like time itself is leaking out. What makes Havre de Grace unsettling isn't decay, it's interruption. Life hasn't collapsed here. It's simply moved on. Just a few blocks away, cafes open their doors, cars pass by, and people live normal lives. But along this stretch of waterfront, time stalled, leaving behind a version of the town that no longer fits the present. Local stories talk about a shipping and trade boom that faded and never returned. No dramatic disaster, no single moment of collapse, just a slow withdrawal of purpose. And that's what makes Havre de Grace haunting. It isn't dead. It's paused, caught between what it was and what it never became. This waterfront isn't a ruin. It's a memory that forgot how to move forward. If you stood alone on these silent docks, watching the fog roll in while modern life continues just steps away, would you wait for Havre de Grace to come back to life, or accept that some towns don't die? They simply stop being needed? Number 1, Daniels, the town erased by nature. Daniels wasn't abandoned because people stopped caring. It was abandoned because staying became impossible. This town was born beside the Patapsco River for one reason: power. The river fed the mills fed the town, and the town trusted the water that kept it alive. Homes were built close together. Streets followed the curve of the valley. Generations lived, worked, married, and were buried here, all within a few hundred yards. For decades, Daniels functioned like clockwork. Then the river began to change. Floods didn't arrive as a single disaster. They came as warnings. Water crept into basements. Foundations weakened. Roads buckled. Each flood erased a little more certainty. Each rebuilding felt more temporary than the last. Eventually, the math stopped working. Insurance couldn't keep up. Repairs became pointless. The land itself was shifting. And finally, the decision was made, not to rebuild but to walk away. What remains of Daniels today doesn't look like a town. It looks like evidence. You don't see houses. You see where houses used to be. Stone foundations lie exposed like bones. Brick walls stand halfway, torn open, letting trees grow through what were once kitchens and bedrooms. Rusted pipes emerge from the ground with nowhere left to go. Streets dissolve into dirt paths, then vanish entirely. And still, the river flows calmly, as if nothing ever happened. One of the most unsettling sights is the cemetery. It remains intact. Headstones still upright, names still readable. The dead were never moved, even as the living disappeared. It's as if the town agreed to leave, but the past refused. Then there is the bridge. A massive stone bridge arches above the ruins, carrying trains every single day. Steel wheels thunder overhead. Commuters pass. Cargo moves. Schedules are met. Life continues, loud, fast, efficient. Below it all, Daniels lies silent. That contrast is what makes this place disturbing. Not destruction, but disregard. The world didn't stop when Daniels vanished. It simply built above it. Daniels wasn't ruined by crime. It wasn't killed by economics. It wasn't forgotten due to neglect. It was overpowered. This town proves a truth most abandoned places don't. Sometimes humans don't leave because they fail. They leave because nature decides the conversation is over. Daniels is not a ghost town. It's a deleted town. No warning signs. No museums. Just a valley where people once lived and water decided otherwise. If an entire town can be erased while trains still run above it and life continues, without pause, how many? Places around us feel permanent, but are already on borrowed time.